Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. السادة الحضور، يرجى منكم البقاء على مقاعدكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب السعادة، السيدات والسادة، الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نرحب بكم اليوم في مؤتمر الاستخدام الآمن للذكاء الاصطناعي. بداية اسمحوا لي أن أعرف بنفسي. معاكم أخوكم خالد النصر من الوكالة الوطنية للأمن السيبراني. الحضور الكريم، لقد شهدت الآونة الأخيرة تطوراً سريعاً وانتشاراً ملحوظاً في تقنيات الذكاء الاصطناعي، وتنوعت تطبيقاتها واستخداماتها بشكل كبير. ويتطلب هذا التطور وجود إطار تنظيمي وأخلاقي قوي للحد من المخاطر التي قد تتجلى بسبب سوء استخدام الذكاء الاصطناعي، وذلك بهدف حماية حقوق الأفراد والمؤسسات وتعزيز الأمان السيبراني. ولقد أدركت الوكالة الوطنية للأمن السيبراني ذلك، وبادرت بالعمل على وضع مبادئ توجيهية للاستخدام والتطبيق الآمن للذكاء الاصطناعي، والتي تهدف للتقليل من الآثار السلبية التي من المحتمل أن يحدثها الذكاء الاصطناعي. الحضور الكريم، اسمحوا لي أن أدعو المهندسة دانا يوسف العبد الله، مدير شؤون الحوكمة والضمان السيبراني الوطني، لإطلاق المبادئ التوجيهية للاستخدام والتطبيق الآمن للذكاء الاصطناعي. فلتتفضل مشكورة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب السعادة، السيدات والسادة، الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسعدني الترحيب بكم في مؤتمر الاستخدام الآمن للذكاء الاصطناعي، والذي يهدف إلى تسليط الضوء على التحديات والفرص المرتبطة باستخدام الذكاء الاصطناعي. يشهد عالمنا اليوم تحولاً كبيراً في استخدام التقنيات الحديثة والناشئة، ولا سيما بعد الثورة الحديثة لتقنية الذكاء الاصطناعي، بما فيها الذكاء الاصطناعي التوليدي وتزايد استخداماته في حياتنا اليومية. ومع هذا التحول والفرص العديدة التي توفرها تقنيات الذكاء الاصطناعي في التحول الرقمي في مجالات عدة منها التعليم والصناعة والأمن والإعلام وغيرها، نشأت حزمة من التحديات الجديدة والتي تحتم على مؤسسات الدولة التعاون معاً في دراستها واقتراح أفضل السبل لمواجهتها دون الحد من الابتكار والإبداع. لقد برزت هذه التحديات على نطاقات مختلفة، منها المخاطر والتهديدات المستجدة في مجال الأمن السيبراني مع تزايد ذكاء الآلة وتبني تقنيات الذكاء الاصطناعي من قبل المخترقين وكيفية التصدي لها. ومن ناحية أخرى دور وكالات الأمن السيبراني في توظيف القدرات لحماية الأنظمة والنماذج المتعلقة بالذكاء الاصطناعي التي تساهم في مبادرات التنمية الوطنية، بالإضافة إلى التحديات المتعلقة بالتشريعات وفض النزاعات المتعلقة بالقرارات المؤتمتة والأخلاقيات وخصوصية البيانات الشخصية، والتي تأخذ حيزاً كبيراً من جهود صناع السياسات والعمل على مبادرات وحلول مبتكرة لحوكمة الذكاء الاصطناعي. وفي هذا الشأن فقد عمل فريق الوكالة الوطنية للأمن السيبراني على دراسة وإعداد نظرة شمولية تعنى بالتعامل الفعال ومواكبة مستجدات الذكاء الاصطناعي لشرائح عدة من المجتمع، وكانت البادرة هي إعداد مبادئ توجيهية للمؤسسات تساعدهم على تطبيق الذكاء الاصطناعي بطريقة آمنة وفعالة، توضح للمستخدمين المخاطر والتهديدات التي قد تنشأ جراء استخدام التقنيات الحديثة، وتساعدهم على إيجاد الحلول المناسبة للتصدي لهذه المخاطر ولهذا التطور الرقمي. ويسعدنا اليوم أن نعلن عن إصدار هذه المبادئ التوجيهية والتي ستكون متاحة للجميع على مواقع الوكالة الوطنية للأمن السيبراني. كما حرصنا من خلال هذا المؤتمر على تقديم منصة للحوار والنقاش وضم التجارب ووجهات النظر حيال تقنية الذكاء الاصطناعي والاستخدام الآمن لها من خلال جلسات نقاشية ضمن أعمال المؤتمر لمناقشة أبرز المواضيع ذات الصلة والتي تشمل التحديات وكذلك الفرص المتعلقة بالذكاء الاصطناعي، بمشاركة عدد من الجهات المعنية بالدولة والمراكز البحثية والخبراء العالميين في هذا المجال. الحضور الكريم، نحن في الوكالة الوطنية للأمن السيبراني ندرك جيداً بأن رحلة رفع الإمكانيات ومستوى الجاهزية السيبرانية للجهات في ظل تطور التقنيات الناشئة هي رحلة مستمرة ومليئة بالتحديات، ولكننا نرى دائماً أن الأمن السيبراني لا يشكل عقبة للتطور الرقمي، وإنما هو فرصة للاستعداد والتصدي للمخاطر، كما أنه يشجع على التحول الرقمي الآمن الذي يضمن سلامة وحماية البنية التحتية الرقمية للجهات والتي تنعكس على سلامة الأفراد. كما أود أن أؤكد بأن الأمن السيبراني يعتبر مسؤولية مشتركة تتطلب جهوداً موحدة لرفع وتعزيز مستوى الأمن السيبراني على الصعيد المحلي والإقليمي والدولي. وفي الختام أود أن أشكر لكم حضوركم اليوم، متمنية لكم الفائدة والتعرف على المبادئ التوجيهية للمؤسسات للتطبيق والاستخدام الآمن للذكاء الاصطناعي، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
نشكر المهندسة دانا العبد الله على هذه الكلمة. السادة الحضور، إن مواكبة وتبني التكنولوجيا الناشئة ومن بينهما الذكاء الاصطناعي يعد من متطلبات العصر، وقد دأبت العديد من المؤسسات على توظيف هذه التكنولوجيا في أعمالها. والآن يسعدني دعوة السيد كميل جبران، شريك استراتيجي من شركة غارتنر، ليلقي كلمته حول توظيف الذكاء الاصطناعي في المؤسسات، فليتفضل مشكوراً.
Good morning. Sabah al-khair, everyone. Let me start by saying that the size of the audience in this room today tells me how important is the topic. I have 20 slides that I need to finish in 10 minutes, and every slide is meant to send you a key message about artificial intelligence and Gen AI. Let me just start by clicking on the button. technology. Excuse us for this. Apologies for that. We'll sort it. Back, yeah. So, let me make my own prediction. I think we would not be here if ChatGPT wasn't made available to the public in March of last year. That's my personal prediction. I joined Gartner 7 years ago, and we've been talking about AI since 2016. But what changed really is last year in March, ChatGPT was made public, and it all started from there. I was in Barcelona attending our event last November, and I even show more shocking statements from Gartner comparing GenAI invention to the next big thing in terms of technology innovation, and we compared it to the invention of iPhone and the World Wide Web. So it's a big statement when a company like Gartner, for 75 years, we are in the industry, telling you if you want to compare the GenAI invention or the advent of GenAI into our society, is comparable to two major events like the World Wide Web and the iPhone. Some prediction, and I asked my colleagues, how good are we in making predictions? Apparently, Gartner's prediction, we meet them between 80 and 85% of the time. We are true in our predictions. But some shocking data here, and I will give you a little bit of one way to understand this data. We're saying in the next 3 to 4 years, companies will spend around $3 trillion on artificial intelligence. It took the cloud several years, if at least 10 years, to reach those numbers. And your AI budget, your IT budget, AI will consume at least 16% by 2027. So for CIOs in this room, this is a data that we need to really understand, and I will walk you through why we think your budget in IT will consume a lot in AI. But I want to also give you some very short predictions. This is 1 year from now that you see them in the middle of the screen. So what we're saying here is that 80% of conversational platforms will use some form of GenAI. All of us today, we use some sort of conversational platform, chatbots, whether internally or with outside agencies. GenAI will be integrated at 80% in the next 12 months. So your users, while discussing things with a chatbot, they will be able to receive documents, text, and images. And the second big production for me is the development, software development. GenAI will really going to revolutionize this field, and we expect 95% of our clients will use some form of code generation platforms, like from Microsoft or others, or AWS. Just look at the last statement. In 2030, the design and discovery of new drugs will lead, for some discovery new drugs with the help of GenAI. And I have a case study that show you today. There's already companies in the world using GenAI today to actually discover new antibodies and doing the testing for them using GenAI. So big prediction from Gartner, but I want to give you a framework for especially IT leaders in this room. It's very important to understand the framework, and there is a risk behind this framework that I would like to highlight. So we think in Gartner that there are 3 levels of AI use cases that we want you to think about. There is the everyday AI that I'm sure vendors are already calling you for everyday AI. This is your Copilot, integration with Microsoft Teams, integration with Outlook, integration with Microsoft Word. There's great use cases, to be honest with you, to be done, and they are very low-hanging fruit. But there's also the pushing the boundary stuff, the stuff that Copilot will not be able to do, and it's a use case that you and your team, using your data, will be able to do. And then there is also breaking the boundaries, and I will give you an example of each. So there is a 3-layer of AI use cases we want you to think about and develop a roadmap for. Now, let me give you 2 examples of everyday AI. So AWS, they have the Code Whisperer platform that help you, developers, get code very quickly in real time. So you're developing a piece of software, you need a piece of code. It's like a chatbot. You tell Code Whisperer, I need this, and it will give you the code. You test it, you deploy it. Another company that did an everyday AI is Stitch Fix. It's a company, it's a closing company. They really isolated all their copywriters from the mundane task of creating a product description and advertisement campaign. So yes, there's a lot of applications for everyday AI. Now let's go a little bit further, and here I will give you one example from design engineering. So if you want to push the boundaries on AI, there is this biotech company in the United States. So they are using Gen AI to actually identify new antibodies. Okay, they have a large history of research and development in a database, and they are bolting on a Gen AI platform on top of it, and they're asking Gen AI, can you help us actually speed up the discovery of new antibodies, or can you help us with the testing and potential results from those? That's today. It's happening today. So pushing the boundaries is also happening today. Autodesk design engineering company, they are using Gen AI as well to do generative design. And I will give you one example. This is the separation unit between the business class and the economy class on Airbus 380. And they used Gen AI to design it. And they told Gen AI, with the parameters that we have, which is the amount of shock that this separation needs to absorb, plus the amount of weight that we need to achieve in the Airbus 380, what is the ultimate or optimal design for the separation? Why I'm showing you this photo? Just to tell you that probably a human brain would have taken a few months to design it this way. Gen AI was able to do it in a few days. Now, you ask me why you are telling us all this. Because in Gen AI, and we in IT, we have seen inventions in IT for the last 20, 25 years, cloud, data analytics, IoT, drones, and what have you. We believe in AI, we want you to pay a particular attention. If you focus too much, if your pipeline of use cases is only on the day-to-day, it is good, but not good enough. It will not gather a lot of support. We say in Gartner, once AI is on your phone, you will forget about it the next day. So we want you to have a balanced approach to your pipeline of use cases. And if you focus too much on pushing the boundaries, because pushing the boundaries will inevitably have higher risk of failure, because this is something you haven't done before, that's also really not good, because you don't want just to hear about failures in your pushing of your boundaries use cases. So we want you to have a portfolio of use cases that crosses between everyday AI, pushing the boundaries AI, and breaking the boundaries AI. I would say 70, 20, 10, but make sure you have a mix of those. Now, where is this push from AI is coming from? I was a CIO myself, and usually as a CIO, I get a call from vendor and they tell me, we have a piece of technology, you need to meet me. Well, in Gen AI or AI in general, it's coming really from the business. So we ran a survey and we found out that actually it's the business asking IT to do something about AI and not the other way around. Now, for me as an ex-CIO, this is fantastic. If the business wants it, that's the push, that's the pull from the business. What I'm used to do is push technology to the business. Here, what the data is showing us, actually, there is no IT on the slide. Marketing, sales, supply chain people are asking for more and more of the art of possible when it comes to AI or generative AI. Why? Because 75% of business leaders, they think AI will have a long-term impact. It's a perception. So, of course, they attended a lot of conferences like this one. They have seen CNN, people talking about Gen AI. They went to the World Economic Forum. They read a lot in the newspapers. So the perception at your business leadership level is in the long term, which is 3 years, actually not so long term, AI will make such a big impact to our organization, which I truly believe too. Now, there's some senior leadership concerns about AI. That's why we are here today. It's the secure usage of AI. Of course, privacy, misuse is the top thing. Of course, the CIO, if we surveyed our CIOs globally, and of course, cyber risks, AI ethics, AI governance, AI privacy of data is really a top concern. Actually, these are I will show you a slide later, these are the barriers actually for implementation and adoption of AI. Now, let's take a look at the current situation. So who's implementing AI, how ubiquitous it is across organization? It's a 50-50 slide. So we are saying 50% of Gartner clients have done nothing or just one use case of AI as of today. But there's another 50%. And I like to see the glass half full, not the glass half empty. There's another 50% who said 22% of those have implemented more than 3 use cases of AI. So actually, if I meet you again next year, I promise you, from what I'm hearing from my clients, and I have a lot of them in the GCC, I think you will not see any dark blue on the slide. Everything will be in green. So time for now is really to act, and act in a secure way. I'm going to skip the slide. So what are the barriers? Look, there is no surprise. What you will be doing, if I use an analogy, you will be changing the tires of your car, and the car is driving 100 kilometers per hour. I have a client who told me, Camille, I need to do an AI security framework. I need to issue an AI policy. I need to issue an AI ethics policy. I need to do training. But his CEO, that's a large company in the GCC, to be honest. CEO is saying, we can't wait for all of that to happen. We need to do something about AI right now. So that's the challenge for security leaders in this room. That's the challenge of IT leaders in this room, is how do you change the tires on your car and the car is moving on the highway? And that's something we haven't seen so much in IT. So yes, you need to work about around your AI security framework and the policies and the ethics and all of that. But at the same time, I don't advise you to say to your boss, let me do all of that and I come back to you in 1 year to see what we can do about AI use cases. Now, little formula. I want to leave you with a few thoughts today. So what is the right formula for the AI technique introduction? We want you to think about the use case first. Let your effort around AI be driven by the use case. That's common sense, right? But we in IT, sometimes we like to boil the ocean a little bit. So what is the use case? Right after the use case, discuss how do you source the skills? Do we have the skills internally? Do we rely on the vendor? Do we need to do training, upskilling for our staff? Once you do that, do we have the right data? Is the data in a clean format? Can we utilize it? The data that support the use case. After that, only after that, you discuss the choice of technology. Why I'm showing you this is to tell you step number 4 is the technology and not step number 1. And that's, when you come to Gartner, that's one of our value add is really to frame the approach when you solve, a technology adoption problem. Use case, skills, data, technology, and of course, last but not least, once you deliver some quick wins on your AI, let's discuss where your AI center of excellence should be homed. Because a lot of clients ask me, do we set up a team? Do we have a chief AI officer? I think it's too early to ask those questions. Let's deliver some value to the business. And then let's deliver some quick wins, and then later we will discuss where is the best place to put AI. Now, use cases. In Gartner, we published 50 of those prisms for each industry. This one here is for government call center, contact center. And we would like you to use our research. So in this particular case, I'm listing 10 use cases of government contact center that's available for you. Why I'm doing this is that we want you to use us plus other market research. I'm an employee of Gartner, I'm telling you do that. So whatever access to information about potential use cases you can get, please do get it. Starting from Gartner, into your vendor, into other research institutes globally. And then once you have an overarching view on the use case, please try and rank them into two criteria. What is the impact in terms of business value? What do we get if we do this use case? And then what's the feasibility of doing this use case. You can really simplify this criteria that you see here. If it was me, the CIO, I would use 2 criteria. Citizen experience is one, efficiency is another, and then the feasibility, the technical maturity of the use case. So once you have an overarching view about potential use cases for your organization and you rank them, of course you need to communicate a one-page strategy on your AI, and then you need to decide, using a framework from Gartner as well, on how do you source it? Do you buy it, do you build it, or do you outsource it? And that's the framework that I would like to leave with you today, so that it guides you through the selection of your delivery approach. Last slide I have is, I want to leave you with this slide on the natural steps for CIOs, IT leaders in this room. If you ask me, what is the natural step to go from, we want to do something about AI, into scaling AI in the space of a few months, this is the natural step. Create awareness, inspire your organization about the potential of AI in your org, identify, track, and score, prioritize, discuss delivery approaches, not delivery team, but also technology and your partnership with other vendors. Most important is define your AI ambition, do the tracking and prioritization, and measure the value. People in the business are tired of digital transformation not providing enough value, and now we are telling them, can you please invest more in AI? So we want you to really please keep an eye on total cost of ownership of your AI use case implementation, and keep an eye on the value, the promised value of your AI use cases. Last comment here before I leave the stage. I talked about the prisms that we have. We have 50 of those. We even have a use case prism for HR, for procurement, for finance, and for many other industries. For those of you who are our clients, please go download them, read them, inspire yourself and your teams and your business about the potential use case application in your business. And with that, I would like to thank you everyone to attend today. Thank you for inviting us for this keynote. And then if you would like to continue our journey, please contact us, and then we will be able to help more. Thank you very much.
نشكر السيد كميل على هذا العرض. حضورنا الكريم، اسمحوا لي أن أدعو السيد عبد الرحمن محمد الشافي، مدير إدارة استراتيجيات وسياسات الأمن السيبراني الوطني، لاستعراض أهم ما تضمنت المبادئ التوجيهية للاستخدام والتطبيق الآمن للذكاء الاصطناعي. فليتفضل مشكوراً.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We have 2 parts which will consist of the first part. We will go through the journey that we had during drafting the guidelines for the secure usage of AI and adoption of AI. And the second part will be the main components of the document. So at the start, we will start from the left. So the first part is the needs assessment. As part of being cybersecurity agency in Qatar, we had to monitor the technology landscape, so we can be able to identify potential regulatory technologies and to keep coming to the service, and AI was mainly one of them. So AI was there for a while, but when ChatGPT, for example, came to the scene, people started to be interested in large language models. We had to have a very deep understanding and a thorough look into what interventions can we make. So we had to be sure that it is not an ad hoc thing. And then the second part, we went to the research and validation. We have done our research, and we considered all standards and regulations worldwide and best practices from governments and leading organizations to understand what best suits the state of Qatar. And even to look into how can we help entities in building and using AI in a secure way. So we have conducted a current state analysis so we can assess the local needs and future requirements as well. The third part would be policy development. We took the people, process, technology approach, which we call in cybersecurity as the 3Ps. Some even might call them the three main pillars of cybersecurity. People refer to the employees or the stakeholders and organizations who are responsible for maintaining the information security. Processes refer to the policies and the procedures, and that can guide information security practices. And the technology refers to the tools and solutions used to protect information technology. We always emphasize that cybersecurity is an enabler for technology advancement rather than an obstacle as widely imagined, and helps in building the digital trust. Then we had the multi-level review. As we are not the only ones in this journey, we had so many key stakeholders in this discussion. We achieved a broad level of consensus through the collaboration with academia and the key stakeholders. For example, the National AI Committee within the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. And the document had been reviewed by Gartner to have an independent and international perspective to the document. Which takes us to the last milestone of our journey, which is publication and adoption. And this is why we are here, to promote and drive the adoption of secure usage and adoption of AI guidelines within the state of Qatar. Then the second part, the main components. First, we have the risks. Bias can be considered as one of the major risks in AI system, which sheds the lights on why we need to focus on digital trust. One of the cyber threats as well is that cyber criminals used to be a limited pool of people with a high skill sets. Nowadays, with Gen AI, it can give anyone the platform or the opportunity to develop or create the content they want in second and in a press of a button. The guidelines were drafted encompassing the vital aspects of the BBT, which is, as we have mentioned, the people, process, technology. And within our organization, if one aspect is weak or not aligned with others, it can impact the overall efficiency or effectiveness or even the security of the organization. The objective is to create synergy where each component enhances the other, which at the end will improve the business outcomes. Digital trust is very crucial. Trust in AI cannot be built by cybersecurity alone. It is more of a function of security, privacy, and ethics. For example, I had an interesting discussion before where someone with vast experience mentioned that cosmetic controls not really helpful in a very advanced and powerful technology like AI, unless security is integrated in the process, or as someone can call it, security by design, which was very essential to look into while drafting the AI guidelines. At the end, the guidelines included a focused section on generative AI, considering its prevalent use in the industry. Hope that you get the chance to go through the document, because we wouldn't give it the time to go through 10 or 15 minutes of the document. I think reading it would give you a better perspective. And we can promise you that we will keep our eyes open to monitor such dynamic technological landscape, and hope that you enjoy this conference. Thank you.
نشكر السيد عبد الرحمن على هذه الكلمة. السادة الحضور، إن حوكمة الذكاء الاصطناعي لها منافع عدة تتمثل في ضمان الاستخدام المسؤول والأخلاقي لهذه التكنولوجيا. ولمناقشة هذا الجانب ندعوكم للاستماع إلى جلسة نقاشية بعنوان حوكمة الذكاء الاصطناعي. وسيدير هذه الجلسة السيد عبد الرحمن الشافي، وبمشاركة كل من المهندسة دانا يوسف العبد الله، الدكتورة نورة فطيس المري، السيد لوكاس دي سونافيل. فليتفضلون إن شاء الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to have you all today to this exciting discussion on AI governance, which will give me the opportunity to share the stage with such experienced professionals. And today we hope to learn more from the distinguished panelists on AI governance. First of all, I would like to introduce our panelists. I will start with Engineer Dana Al-Abdallah. Dana Yusuf Al-Abdallah is the Director of the National Cyber Governance and Assurance Affairs at the National Cyber Security Agency. Ms. Dana holds a bachelor's degree in computer engineering from Qatar University and a master's degree from HEC Paris in strategic business unit management. Dana has more than 17 years in cybersecurity, and she led many national projects in both cybersecurity and data privacy. Dana is also the director of the National Data Privacy Office, which works as the competent department for the privacy law in Qatar. Next, I would like to welcome Dr. Noura Qais. She is a certified innovation leader and a fellow at the Institute of Innovation and Knowledge Exchange in the UK, and is an associate professor at the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Qatar University. She is the founding Secretary General of the Arab Association for Cybersecurity, an advisor to the UK Gulf Women in Cyber Fellowship Program, and a mentor at the ITU UN Women in Mentorship Program. Besides holding 3 US patents in cybersecurity, Dr. Noura Qais was awarded a NATO SBS grant to support her Cyber Woman initiative and won many awards, such as the She Inspires 2022 award from the UK and Qatar University Outstanding Faculty Service Award. Lastly, I would like to welcome Mr. Lucas Denison-Neville, partner in Kearney's Digital and Analytics practice. Before joining Kearney in the Middle East over a decade ago, he worked for Kearney's office in Amsterdam. In the Middle East, Lucas is working with government and private sector on a variety of emerging technology topics such as AI. His focus is on economic development of technology sector. He worked on many technology-related topics, including regulations, hardware unification standards, cloud-first policies, and AI policies and regulation frameworks. So the panel discussion will have just a small general rule, which will be that this will be primarily a curated session, where we will start with a general question to each panelist, and then we will have directed question to each one of you, inshallah. So let's get into business, probably now, because we were quite late with time. The first question that I would like to hear your perspective, all 3 of you, is that what are the key principles of AI governance and how can they be applied to ensure the responsible development of AI technology?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you, Abdurrahman, and thanks for our distinguished panelists to join us today. To start with, I would like to say that in cybersecurity industry, we're quite used to deal with uncertainty, ambiguity, and also emerging technologies. In the past decade, we have seen a lot of emerging technologies that were in the rise. Yet, we really need to acknowledge that AI is not like any emerging technology. And the straightforward reason for that is that it has been able to penetrate a lot of people's life, not only with generative AI, but also before that. And people were able to see how AI is really unleashing a lot of potentials, whether it is for individuals or businesses or governments. And they have seen also that with these potentials being unlocked, there are different type of risks and threats that is coming into the surface. Now, with also having the media putting all these spotlights on the risks and the threats, the fear and the concerns has been very much on the rise, and that diverted all the attention to the governance side for AI and for the regulators. And I think the best way for the regulators and understanding the governance components when it comes to the AI is to look at the AI triad, if I would say, which is basically 3 major components. One of them is the compute or the computing power, and also the algorithms, and lastly the data. All of these, or every one of these components will have its own characteristics, will have its own risks, and it has its own regulatory compliance and regulatory requirements. And therefore, for the policymakers and people who work in the governance, they really need to address these components differently and also coherently. And to do that, I think it's very important because, for example, when we talk about data, the challenges that we have with data when it comes for integrating it with AI and the data sets, we talk about data integrity, we talk about data cleansing, we're talking about data quality, data privacy. But when it comes for algorithms, we talk about something else. Then we look at the talented of developing these algorithms to have them more responsible, more traceable, more transparent. And then when we go for the compute power, there are different perspectives when it comes to manufacturing the hardware and the microchips that is underlying these all systems. And I think for the policymakers, it's very important to first of all, the basic principle is to understand what is the requirements for the country, because each country has its own national needs. Because it's different, for example, if a country has a good potential and the capability of manufacturing microchips or hardware, the regulatory requirements will be very much different than a country that is attracting, for example, hyperscalers within their territory. It's different than the requirements of the country that is trying to build their supercomputers in place. And that's totally also different requirements for a country that would act as end user for these technologies, or just have a different development layer on the top of that. So understanding the national requirements is so important, the national needs that would help everyone to put a good and robust AI governance structure.
Yeah, thank you, Engineer Dana. Now I will hand the floor to Dr. Noura to have your perspective on the question as well.
Thank you, Abdulrahman. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this event. When we talk about AI, we should start talking about data first. For many years, they always say data is the new oil, and everyone is wondering how we compare data with oil. Now with the AI, with artificial intelligence, we can see that one of the main component is pre-training the system, or pre-training the software. So when we start studying in computer science, we start programming. So with the program, we put the data, whatever data we'll put. Still, when we repeat the program again, it is the same data. The program is not learning from what's happened before. However, with the AI, it's learning from the previous process and start to predict what's going to be in the future. Now with the Gen AI, it is creating the content. It's not taking from us and learning from the data. It can create the data. And this is a good opportunity. At the same time, it's a challenge. Why the challenge? How can we make sure the data is the integrity of the data, the safety of the data, the transparency of the AI itself? Is it biased or not? Is it ethical? Is it taking the social impact in consideration? Because now with that data, it's coming from different culture. It's not our culture. So if, for example, the kids, if they are using ChatGPT or any other platform, what kind of culture impact can affect the answer? So all of these are challenges for the society level, but also with the security. So with the AI gonna to be more intelligent in the future, can it make the attack itself? Can we see this in the future? For now, people can use these platforms to plan, to generate the data, to access data, but we need a governance. We need frameworks to make sure that our people are protected, our society is protected. So, yeah, these are the main principles in my opinion: transparency, accountability. Who's responsible really for that, for generating the data, for making sure the data is valid, and to use it. So these are the challenges. The opportunity that I wanted to mention are, it is really opening a lot of doors for the future. So one of the things I always hear in the education, they say a student will use it for cheating. No, they are using it for as another tool. However, the teachers should use it to change the way they are teaching the new generation. So these are the principles, these are the opportunities and the challenges.
Thank you, Dr. Anura. I think we had multiple principles that we have covered. So no pressure, Lucas. You have to give us something new.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thanks so much for having me here today among such distinguished panelists. And I think your answers indeed already really show the depth of the knowledge which you have. So let me summarize it from a governance angle, a couple of the perspective and principles which should be there. Number one, and Dr. Noura, you mentioned it, is the transparency, making sure AI systems are understandable and that it's clear why and how certain outcomes are being generated. Then secondly is the accountability, making sure that within organization, within entities, it's clear who's accountable for the AI systems, and that if there's certain challenges happening, recourse can happen and feedback loops are in place. Thirdly, it's the fairness, which is very important, really having unbiased systems, being fair across all the different groups in the society. Fourthly, and I think the people in NCSA, that's really the core business, right? Making sure that the AI systems are also safe and secure. So really the physical, the digital security is in place to really prevent the misuse. And I think several things already said about that today. And lastly, the fifth point, which is critical, is really the data privacy, sensitive data, making sure that that's safe and that misuse is prevented, that not certain personal data, for example, is exposed into a system. Now, to do that, from my point of view, you really need to do from the entire AI lifecycle. And I think in your guidelines, you have a great diagram from the inception all the way up to the retirement of the AI systems, having all these principles throughout in place.
Thank you, Lucas. So now probably I will get more into directing a question to each one of you to have more probably insight into more specific issues that we would like to discuss. So I will start with you, Dana. Can you please just elaborate on what are the key challenges facing policymakers and regulators as they seek to develop effective AI governance frameworks, and how can these challenges be addressed?
Thank you, Abdurrahman. There are a couple of challenges, but for the sake of time, I would like to prioritize two of them. The first one is the ethical part when it comes to AI, and I think this is a very challenging for the policymakers, because even in smaller societies, sometimes when you put principles or values, it's very difficult to make sure that and regulate that everyone will practice these values. Now, applying that to AI when it comes to transparency and fairness and making sure that this is unbiased as much as possible, that's a very big challenge when it comes for regulating AI. And yes, there is a lot of the initiatives from the industry to put the regulations or to put certain of standards to make sure that we regulate the ethics and having a good basis for that. But the challenge that we did not test the effectiveness of this yet. So it's yet to come. We really need to put it under practice and under examination, that are these controls that we're trying to put for addressing fairness, addressing unbiased and transparency and traceability is really being effective, or we really need to innovate something else. The other challenge that I would also prioritize is the ability to differentiate between content that is generated by AI and content generated by human. And this is very important because it has a profound implications on the disinformation and impersonalities that could arise as major threats for that, and that's affecting everyone's life, because the use of this kind of content to create disinformation, propagandas, and agendas, that's truly crucial for everyone's life. I've just heard that 4 days ago, for example, OpenAI has released a new tool called Sora, and Sora is doing just like video generating using text, and that could end up of having a video of 60 seconds. The quality of these videos in the promotion was so much high and accurate that you cannot differentiate it from normal video to just a video generated with AI. Now, the good thing that OpenAI did is that they did not release it for public yet. They put it under experiments for the researchers, for the policymakers to examine. And what they have also emphasized on the metadata and the ability of having the metadata embedded with this content to make sure that it really differentiates such content that is generated with AI. Now, from cybersecurity perspective, we know that even metadata, sometimes if we're not putting good security controls on that could be also manipulated. So the challenge for the policymakers to make sure that the integrity of the data and the transparency of the data is there. That's one thing. The other thing is that when addressing these challenges or to overcome these challenges, as I said in the beginning, to look at the national priorities, that's one. But also, and most importantly, also looking at harmonizing the regulations within the country with international regulations, and that's very crucial. We have a good experience in data privacy when we, for example, know about GDPR. GDPR, for example, is becoming a common language for all the data privacy industry. And even for us in Qatar, we have released our law just before GDPR, but we have the same principles, we have the same understanding. Now we have a common language that would make it easier for us as regulators and also for the regulated entities to make it easier for them to be compliant to national and international regulations as well. And I think this is very important.
Thank you, Dana. Now I will go to Dr. Noura. How can nations like Qatar empower local capabilities to design or deploy AI systems that are responsible, ethical, and secure? And what role do you expect for policymakers in this perspective?
Okay, when we talk about capabilities, we talk about building capacity. And when we talk about building capacity, it's the new generation. And this is where schools, where universities, and research, of course, are part of it. So investing more in research and in university programs to be part of this journey, of AI journey. So with the research, we can investigate or do assessments for the current AI solutions and prediction for the future solutions. Also for the awareness. Awareness is very important because one important part is the ethical part. So awareness, how to use the AI, to what extent, what does it mean to protect our own data or to give the data. So awareness, training is very important as well. Collaboration, international collaboration, also one important part because other countries, they already have big companies, and the big companies are the companies who are creating and doing the change in AI. So we need that kind of collaboration, and the collaboration is not only to take the solution, to be part of it, to build the capabilities and the capacity here in our country. And I think these are the three main important things that we need for building the capacity, beside, of course, what my colleagues already said about the frameworks and having the law that can prevent and can enable people to use or to create or to implement the AI.
Thank you, Dr. Noura. Lucas, I will give you a trickier question. So from your point of view, what obstacles could hinder the establishment of ethics and regulations for artificial intelligence, and how policymakers can address this challenge specifically?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? If all would be clear, we would probably not be here today, and the obstacles would all be mitigated. The first and most prominent one is the sheer speed of AI. I mean, if you think of it, generative AI, it's about 15 months old now that it was really launched, and everybody adopted this and is speaking about it. Then, as a policymaker, it's very challenging to keep up with that pace. Another one is the differences globally. If you look what emphasis, for example, the EU puts on the personal data vis-a-vis, for example, a country like China. These are very much different. So really making one aligned global regulation or policy or law is very challenging in that sense. Then there's always the challenge between innovation vis-a-vis regulation. So the more we regulate, the less we innovate. We maybe hinder certain initiatives, the private sector, for the development of AI. And lastly is the sectoral differences. The challenges in the financial sector with AI are very different than healthcare or agriculture, for example. Now, to address that, what can we do from a government perspective? The first one, and I think the guideline you published today is a great example of that, is you start more with the softer interventions, and then as the AI matures, you implement more stringent, if needed, regulations, laws, etc. Another one is to be very targeted. So you can think of AI, and we need one comprehensive AI law covering everything, because then you control it. But then it could become, number one, too general, because it's such a fast emerging technology that you would make more vague laws, which you always want to prevent, in my view. So be very targeted. I mean, we know already today there's challenges for deepfakes, for IP infringement, personal data, to make sure that that's strictly regulated, while monitoring the developments in the market to see if other regulations or policies or laws are needed. And then lastly is really to find the global alliances, see where the countries you align with, and form a bloc to share best practices, but also to develop standards, which will help the harmonization. I mean, after all, AI and the technology is a global technology. It goes by a second across the world. So having the more standards we have globally aligned, the better we are. And we have seen, for example, Europe historically. I think that also has to do with the technology blocks between the US and China. These blocks and Europe tries to regulate, so they have been quite successful at that. So finding a block like that with fellow alliances members would be one third thing to tackle that.
Thank you, Lucas. Unfortunately, I have too many questions lined up for each one of you, but we are running out of time. So I'm sure we can keep going with the questions. We run out of time, as I said, and I would assure the audience that our panelists will be here for any questions and will be available post this panel discussion. I would now like to take a moment to thank all the guests, Ms. Dana, Dr. Noura, Lucas, thank you very much. I'm sure the audience enjoyed this discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a big round of applause to thank our panelists.
Thank you very much.
أشكر المشاركين في هذه الجلسة النقاشية. حضورنا الكريم، أدعوكم الآن إلى استراحة مدتها نصف ساعة، نعود بعدها لاستكمال أعمال مؤتمرنا، وشكراً. السادة الحضور، أرحب بكم مجدداً في الجزء الثاني من مؤتمر الاستخدام الآمن للذكاء الاصطناعي. واسمحوا لي أن أبدأ بالسيدة مزنة صديقي، خبير في المجال السيبراني والذكاء الاصطناعي من جامعة الأمم المتحدة لتطوير السياسات، للحديث بشأن إحدى التجارب العالمية حول الذكاء الاصطناعي والأمن السيبراني.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. I'm so grateful for the presence of so many of you here today, and also to the National Cybersecurity Agency of Qatar for organizing this timely and salient event on the secure use of artificial intelligence. The threats posed by artificial intelligence, particularly as it relates to its implications on cybersecurity, are varying and diffused. Developments in emerging technologies are occurring at a rapid pace, creating opportunities for progress, but also risks at the individual, national, and global level. Concerted action is needed, and is indeed currently in its genesis on part of the international community, to govern the risks posed by AI, whilst also fostering innovation, dialogue, and development. Within this past decade alone, we have seen an exponential increase in the development of AI legislation and guidelines by both member states, the private sector, civil society, and all other relevant stakeholders. In 2022, 37 AI-related bills were passed into law globally, followed by a renewed commitment and interest from the international community to govern AI since the launch of ChatGPT-4 in March 2023. Over the past few months, major players such as the United States, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and China, amongst many other players, have released their own guidelines and policies for national AI governance. These regulations differ in their approaches, both from a fundamental perspective and also in their unique and tailored recommendations. In addition to these developments in national AI governance, the United Nations has taken a keen interest in promoting the global governance of AI. As recently as August 2023, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres established a high-level advisory body on AI consisting of a diverse group of members to advise the international community on standards and best practices for AI governance. The body released its interim report in December 2023, outlining key risks and challenges that need to be addressed, whilst also proposing preliminary recommendations for effective governance. It is expected that the recommendations of this body will feed directly into the intergovernmental negotiations for the Global Digital Compact, which will be an annex to the Pact for the Future. For those of you who are not familiar with the Pact for the Future will be a pact which member states will adopt in the Summit of the Future this upcoming September 2024. And the Summit of the Future provides a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the international community to advance recommendations and also reaffirm commitments to address complex global challenges, such as AI. Much like the internet, the applicability and use of AI transcends borders and boundaries, making it a truly global risk as well as an opportunity. AI, at its very core, is a tool. It is the human use of AI that creates risks and opportunities to either promote global progress or to contribute to global challenges. Those challenges can be varied. At the individual level, for instance, algorithmic bias in the development of AI can contribute to discriminatory outcomes for vulnerable and marginalized communities. This can also then lead to unfair and inequitable instances of profiling and discrimination. At the national level, AI can be misused by malevolent actors to offset peace and security. For instance, AI can be deployed by terrorist groups and organizations to promote disinformation and also increase their efforts at radicalization. Alternatively, AI can also be used to conduct an increased volume and increase the impact of cyber attacks. And cyber attacks have increased by 40% in 2023 compared to 2022, and AI has been a key driving factor in this. AI-enabled cyber attacks pose a direct risk to the privacy and protection of individual data. In recent years, we have seen a surge in cyber attacks aimed at hospitals, leading to healthcare data breaches. This affects vulnerable communities the most, such as children. Cyber attacks can also target critical infrastructures, ranging from electrical grids to nuclear power plants. Naturally, this can have devastating consequences on global peace and security if this threat is not adequately addressed. While the private sector has taken the initiative to self-regulate and develop guidelines and best practices for the use of AI, the cross-cutting implications of AI requires the deliberation and the assent of the international community. A truly global response, one that is based on the principles of networked, inclusive, and effective multilateralism, is needed to address the risks posed by AI. As many of you may be aware, data forms the bedrock of artificial intelligence, and the international community can leverage the opportunity provided by the Global Digital Compact to declare the years 2025 to 2035 an international decade for data. International decades are multilateral tools that have been successfully used in the past by the United Nations to raise awareness and enhance global cooperation and collaboration on complex global challenges. Key examples include the International Decade for Women, which shed light and visibility on women's unpaid labor and their health. Another key example is the International Water for Life Decade, which accelerated progress on Goal 7 of the Millennium Development Goals to halve the proportion of the population without sustainable access to safe drinking water and sanitation, 5 years ahead of schedule. The Summit of the Future therefore presents a unique and timely opportunity for the international community to mobilize on its commitments for digital cooperation and AI governance. And the United Nations is a well-placed organization to be conducting this exercise and to promote greater global collaboration on digital and AI governance. I thank you, and I look forward to the discussions that will be taking place today.
نشكر السيدة مزنة على هذه الكلمة. حضورنا الكريم، إن سوء استخدام تقنية الذكاء الاصطناعي قد تنتج عنه مخاطر سيبرانية عديدة تطال الأفراد والمؤسسات. ولتسليط الضوء على هذا الموضوع، دعونا نستضيف جلسة نقاشية بعنوان تهديدات ومخاطر الذكاء الاصطناعي. وسيدير هذه الجلسة السيد سمير بوسكار من الوكالة الوطنية للأمن السيبراني، وبمشاركة كل من الدكتور عيسى خليل، الدكتور لوغان كوكرين، السيد عبد الوهاب المطوع. يرجى من المشاركين التفضل للمنصة.
Shall we begin? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, respected dignitaries, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to welcome you all today to this exciting discussion on risks and threats in artificial intelligence. Today, we hope to learn from this distinguished panel about the risks and threats in AI technology and how we can build a trust in AI technology. Without much ado, I would like to introduce the distinguished panel and the panelists on the stage. Please welcome Mr. Abdul Wahab Al-Mutawa. He is the Director of Cyber Threat Department within the Cyber Fusion Affairs in the National Cybersecurity Agency. He began his career with the Cybersecurity Center in Ministry of Interior. As part of the cyber operations, his day-to-day responsibilities are focused on protecting the cyberspace of the country. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Logan Cochrane. Dr. Logan is an associate professor at Hamad bin Khalifa University. He is also the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs in the College of Public Policy. He is also an Associate Fellow of the Ethiopian Academy of Science and an Adjunct Professor at Hawassa University Institute for Policy and Development Research. Lastly, I would like to introduce Dr. Isa Khalil. He is the Principal Scientist in the Cybersecurity Group at the Qatar Computer Research Institute. His research focuses on security, data analytics, networking, AI and ML security, privacy, and privacy data sharing. His work has been recognized with prestigious grants and awards, and he has several patents under his belt. He has also been awarded with an Outstanding Professor Award for outstanding performance in research, teaching, and service from the UAE University where he has served previously. As general housekeeping rules, I would like to inform the audience that this will primarily be a curated session. However, time permitting, we would love to take questions from the attendees. I hope everybody is well settled now, and in the interest of time, let me begin by asking all of you an open question. What do you believe are some of the biggest risks and pressing dangers associated with the adoption of AI in the business and society, and how can this be mitigated? Please.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to join this panel discussion. AI systems, like all digital systems, they present both opportunities and threats. And coming from NCSA, and since we are focusing on the big picture and the whole cybersecurity of Qatar, my main concern is how the accelerated adoption of those systems can change and impact the attack surface of the state, introducing new entry points and may be exposing new vulnerabilities, some of which we are aware of and some we may not be aware of yet. And also how it will change the threat landscape of the country, introducing new threat actors with different motivations aiming to target those systems. Because AI systems makes a perfect target for threat actors because of the data it's storing and it's training on, and it may for sure include the confidential data. So those systems can be attacked via multiple techniques, leading to risks such as the disclosure of sensitive data, manipulation of training data, and this is very critical for entities planning to adopt AI and integrate with other critical systems within their organization. And also privacy-related risks, and the risks go on. So, yeah.
Dr. Logan, would you like to add your thoughts?
Thank you so much for having me and joining us today. I'd like to make 3 points to start us off. One is about ethics and law. The second, to give some specific examples of the risks we could consider here in the state of Qatar. And the third is thinking about this question of bias that we've been discussing so far today. So in the beginning, thinking about ethics and law, we can think about some of the opportunities, the business cases that can be unleashed in the private sector to utilize artificial intelligence and machine learning. And we should definitely have an enabling environment for that. The state has a different set of responsibilities to protect the rights of its citizens and ensure that these risks don't materialize. So I think from some of the state agencies' perspective, we need to particularly consider existing laws and ensure those rights are protected, and the ethical considerations to ensure that the values of the state of Qatar are protected as these use cases are rolled out. What we've learned so far in the last 15 or 16 months is that if AI clashes with values or results in some sorts of failures or hallucinations that we've seen, they can fail miserably. We have seen, for example, facial recognition software identify humans as animals. Backlash has emerged. We have seen artificial intelligence being used to generate content for legal cases, which we later learned were a hallucination and then had legal consequences. So sometimes when these misuses fail, they fail miserably. And we want to avoid that, particularly as state regulators thinking about state strategy, risk management, and policy. What are some of the risks and threats that we might consider here in the state of Qatar? I'll give you a few examples. I have a long list. Maybe we can return to others afterwards, but just to think through specific examples. We're excited about the opportunity to use AI in education, and we should. Personalized tutors. There are many ways in which we can utilize artificial intelligence to enhance the learning of the students in the state of Qatar. There are also risks. If we don't have guardrails on the content, there may be experiences of students in the classroom that conflict with the values of the state of Qatar. That may then go back to parents and homes, and then the learners themselves may have these conflicting messages about content generated to questions they ask of AI chatbots that we've heard about or other personalized tutors that conflict with the values of the state of Qatar. So here we might think, particularly when dealing with children and other vulnerable populations, having more guardrails or more protections to ensure that the values of the state of Qatar, the Qatar National Vision 2030, and other sectoral ministerial strategies are reflected in the use cases of these different technologies. I can give you a number. We've heard some of them about biases emerging because our systems are built upon data sets. And if those data sets have biases, the results or the products of these systems may replicate those biases. That could be in transportation systems, that could be in policing systems, that could be in HR systems, in hiring, for example. We've heard this morning about cybersecurity risks, fakes, cyber warfare, and so forth. Maybe just to add some of the other sectors that may be vulnerable, financial sector. We could have deepfakes, the use of video content creation that we heard about this morning from Muhandisa Dana, that this could be used to access accounts. If we had facial software, voice software, multiple ways to access financial systems. We're starting to see ways in which other financial sectors are being manipulated. For example, the stock market. If algorithmic trading is abused, this could result in risks to the financial sector. Maybe a final example, in the healthcare system, we are thinking about many opportunities to identify, for example, cancer in ways that we weren't able to do so previously at very early stages. In so doing, in using this positive use case, we also need to ensure that the rights of the citizens and residents of Qatar are protected, that their privacy is protected, that their data is handled according to the laws of the state and held in servers within the state, subject to the laws of the state. There are a lot of different considerations in this. If we want, we can elaborate on other risks that I have in my list in follow-up questions. But the last point I wanted to make was about an unbiased system. We've heard this a few times this morning about the need to have an unbiased system. Let me provocatively suggest that there is no such thing as an unbiased system. Every system is built on data, and every people have certain sets of values that they would like to see reflected in these artificial intelligence systems. So what you've been hearing me say is that the state of Qatar should ensure that its values are reflected, that the curriculum of the Ministry of Education and Higher Education conveys a certain set of values to its learners. we should ensure that introduction and integration of artificial intelligence reinforces and reflects those same values. Now, that might be considered by some a bias, but those are our values. And we should embrace that that may be considered by some a biased system, but those reflect our values, and we should be confident and courageous to say, we want to ensure these values are protected, and that the state, its laws, its constitution, its strategies, down to the content of every single lesson plan in the classroom, reflect those same values. So I want us to rethink the idea of an unbiased system, that there may not be such a thing, and embrace the idea of ensuring the systems we roll out reflect our values. Thank you.
Maybe we refer to it as the good bias and the bad bias thing. Dr. Isa, if you can please elaborate your thoughts.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. I want to address the problem from maybe 3 different aspects: the privacy, security outcomes, and the security of AI systems and those. So from the privacy point of view, everybody knows that these AI models, especially the GAI and the language models, been trained from a large number of data sets. And they've been curated quickly, and they, from the internet, some of them contain private information. So there is the risk that these models can leak this private information, and there are many, many incidents in which this data is being breached. So this is only one side of it. The other side also, users who interact with the models, so they provide also additional information about themselves. So these models learn and sometimes memorize this information, and this information could be also propagated to other users inadvertently or not intentionally. And also there is a quick adoption for different domains for AI, especially large language models, and that even may risk the trade secrets of companies. For example, think of companies who use AI to build software or to help them develop their software packages. So the prompts they provide, they leak information about what are the problems they are addressing and how they are addressing it and all that stuff. So this is from the privacy. There's another issue which is people sometimes overlook, which is the copyright. I mean, even though, the material that is used to train the models, they may not be private, but there may be copyright. I mean, sometimes these models memorize things. So when they generate, it's not really a generated content, but it's rather replicating what they have been trained on. And that could lead to copyrights. For example, I can give you a company who's building a software with the help of the large language models. So this software could contain pieces of software from open source, and that creates big copyright problems for this company. This is from the privacy point of view, and there are many things to add. But from the security point of view also, AI lowers the bar for cybersecurity attacks. It becomes easier and easier to carry on and launch cyber attacks. It's no longer needed to have very high qualified people and technical people to be able to launch or come up with an attacks, because with the help of AI, you can easily commit these attacks. And not only in numbers, and I remember in the morning, we see that there are 4 times more cyber attacks because of AI than before. But the attacks are become more and more stealthy and complicated. If you remember, when we're talking about phishing emails were so easy to detect, but now you can use the AI to generate really very well-crafted phishing emails that are very, very hard to identify and detect. So it really helps or increases the complexity and the rate of launching cyber attacks. In the last aspect also, the security of AI systems themselves. I think because of the exponential adoption and quick or rush towards AI systems, tools, or AI-based tools. I mean, people sometimes overlook the security of these tools. So there are two main security issues. One of them is adversarial prompting, for example, where you can push these models to generate unsafe content, for example. Or it's even worse than that. You may inject what we call it backdoors or Trojans in the models generated, so that anyone who is using these models, the product that is generated carries risks for others. So, for example, you may generate, if you're talking about a model which is used to build a software, and this model injects vulnerability in this software. So anyone else who's going to use this software will be exposed to exploiting this vulnerability. So these are main three aspects. Of course, there are many other risks, but for the sake of time, I only think that these are the major ones that we should take care of.
Thank you, everybody, for those beautiful insights. I would now like to dive deeper and draw from your individual expertise. And let me kind of carry it forward from where Dr. Isa left. And my first question is to Mr. Abdul Wahab. How do we see AI impacting the cyber threat scene in terms of cyber threat actors, cyber crimes, and potentially using AI as a cyber weapon? And if I may ask, and feel free not to answer the second part, like, are we seeing something similar or similar attacks already in the region and specifically in Qatar? If you could share some insights on that.
So for the first part, I will start where Dr. Isa ended, and he talked about some attacks on AI systems, specifically, for example, input injection. And those type of attacks, also called the prompt injection, same thing, but different name. So it's basically the attacker sends the AI system a crafted input in order to lead the AI system to generate an output which is not supposed to do. A very simple example is ChatGPT, a group of researchers and some users until now are also doing this attack. They are trying to jailbreak the system of ChatGPT and requesting it to generate malicious codes, for example, which is something ChatGPT is programmed not to do. And whenever they put the security controls in order to stop, they are still trying to find ways to bypass it. And they call it, they have a term for it, which is called DAN, which is do anything now. Another type of threats is related to the data manipulation, the training data manipulation. It's called data poisoning. Basically, the attacker poisons the training data and leading it to generate wrong decisions. And this is very critical, as I said before. If entities are depending on the decisions being made by the AI systems, the poisoning of the data will lead to consequences. And a very simple example, an old example for the data poisoning is, if you recall the 2016 Microsoft Thai chatbot, or the Thai bot in Twitter. Microsoft created this bot in Twitter in order to engage with other accounts and learn from them. And at the beginning, it was nice and engaging nicely with other accounts, but it was attacked by bots with using, for example, bad language and racist commands. So the bot trained and it was poisoned by those data, leading to it being also racist and using the bad language also. A third and also very important type of threat is called model theft. And this is important if you are going to develop your model in-house. And it's important if you are going, as a business, you are going to sell this model. Because this type of attacks works by the attacker query a large number of inputs and examining the output in order to reconstruct the model itself. So this is a violation to intellectual property and may lead to financial loss for the organizations. And the other part of the threats, which is the malicious use of AI, I agree with you that we have seen malicious use of AI to, for example, generate typo-squatting domains, to be better in creating phishing attacks. And according to a publication by UK government, they anticipate that until 2025, the AI will be used to amplify the current threats that we have, for example, phishing and other threats. And after 2025, we may see things that we cannot anticipate currently. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Abdul Wahab, for those insights. Moving on to Dr. Logan. I know this is something very close to your heart and of interest to you. So my question to you, Dr. Logan, is what are some of the key ethical issues associated with AI? And how can we navigate those issues, those dilemmas in a responsible and a transparent manner, again, in the context of building trust towards AI systems?
Great, thank you. I'll give one more example before I delve into the ethics question. And that, so far we've mentioned a lot of risks and threats that are technical in nature. And I think we can also see other risks that are social in nature. So sort of moving beyond the technical and seeing the implications of these risks and threats in the social domain. If we have the utilization of social media, for example, that's designed to produce certain content in a way that's divisive for society, and it's targeted, we may see an erosion of social cohesion. And this relates to the ethics question, because what brings together a nation and what brings us all to serve for the betterment of the country and its future is a common understanding of the state, what we believe in, its values, and where we would like to go together in the future. If social media and other tools beyond the bounds of the state are being used to create social division, and we see many examples of this around the world currently, that we could have a less cohesive society, and that can affect our future negatively. So I think here we have to look beyond the technical fixes, which are critical and essential, but also the social implications. I think this is one of the biggest risks, is moving beyond the technical and the social cohesion impacts of the utilization of AI through social media and so on, chatbots, et cetera, to influence our society or other societies in ways that might be specifically designed to tear us apart, to conflict with ourselves. Moving to ethics, I have the opportunity at Jamiat Hamad bin Khalifa to teach ethics for public policy. And one of the things that we go through in that class is many different ethical theories. And I think the first thing we need to do is be very clear about what ethics we would like to see guide the use of AI and machine learning here in the state of Qatar. If we are recipients or users of software and platforms developed elsewhere, we will have a degree of control, but a minimal degree of control because we are continuing to be users. If we're more proactive and setting strategies, regulations, I gave the example about education earlier, we may adopt some technology, but give it specific and clear parameters around content generation, for example. As we heard, that may not actually prevent misuses as all these workarounds emerge. And this we need to be careful, particularly with children. You can imagine 7, 8, 9-year-old children working with a chatbot as a personalized tutor in the class, and those conversations may go into a direction that are not only counter to the values of the state, but could be harmful. And you can find many examples of this as social media platforms have integrated chatbots into their platforms. So the first point is clarifying our own ethical stance for the state of Qatar, and then integrating it into our policies. We can see many, as we heard earlier in the speech from the United Nations expert, that countries are adopting different approaches. Some are much more libertarian, much more hands-off. Some are utilitarian, looking for maximizing benefit. And others are more values-oriented. So this is a decision for us to make. And when we make that decision, we need to ensure that it's reflected in our laws and policies. I think, and just to make a note, many of these laws and policies already exist. So for example, laws and policies around privacy. We need to ensure that those laws and policies are reflected in the integration of artificial intelligence systems in our existing society. For example, we heard earlier that AI is being rapidly integrated into what we already use. If you're using, for example, Microsoft, or we're seeing Copilot all of a sudden in our system, have we looked at what access we've now granted has become integrated into these systems? As more and more of these integrations occur, we probably need to relook at our data classification policies to ensure that privacy and rights are protected. We probably also need to look at where those servers and where that data is housed, because if they are outside of the jurisdiction of the state of Qatar, they may be subject to laws of other states, and that data may be accessed without the knowledge and consent of authorities in the state of Qatar. So a lot of these legal and policy questions will emerge once we've defined clearly for our own selves what our ethical standards will be, and then integrating them into those strategies.
Thank you, Dr. Logan. Dr. Isa, continuing further, my question to you is, what should be the role of academia and industry in the development and deployment of AI technologies, and how do we study the impacts of AI?
I think this is a very critical aspect, and I always been known that for advocating that we should not only be users of technologies, we should also build our own in-house technologies. So I agree with Dr. Logan about the bias that he mentioned earlier. I mean, because these models or these AI models being trained on data that reflect culture that is different from our culture. So one of the things that we at QCRI are doing always is we're trying to build such technologies. So we are currently also working on building our own language model, for example, that is trained based on data, is collected from the culture that reflects Qatar and reflects the Islamic values and culture. And there are many examples. I mean, if you go and check the existing models and, for example, ask simple questions about the right of, for example, Palestinians to have freedom versus the right of Israel to have freedom, and you'll be shocked about the answer that you receive from these models. That the answer is, when it comes to Palestinians, it's something complicated and gets you to all directions. But when it comes to Israel, they said exactly they have the right to be free and they have their own country. So we're building this system, and I asked this same question to our model. It's not yet public because we are still training it. And I'm very happy that is biased, but biased in the right way. I mean, I agree that bias is not always a bad thing. I mean, you should be biased to our values, our own, values and our important things that we care about. So this is one thing. Other thing also, we try to build secure systems. So we are now building different projects in different areas where we can try to understand, for example, the implications of insecure AI models. Adoptions or downloading these models from different places. They may carry on these, as I mentioned earlier, as backdoors, or they can be easily used against us, because when you use it, you are not aware of the risks that under the hood of these things. So we built technologies at the QCRI. For example, we have recently developed this technology. It's very easy. You just pass a model to it and tell you whether this is a safe model to use, or it could have potential backdoors that could be inject vulnerabilities into your institution. So, another thing is to do this, we should continue building capacity, and this is with the help of the different schools and universities, and training our own local professionals. And for that, I want to reemphasize that also at QCRI, we built this, what we call it, Cyber Range, a National Cybersecurity Center, in which we not only theoretically train professionals or people, we get them into an environment where they can go and practice and train on how to build models, how to inject attacks in terms of offensive, and how they can defend against such attacks in a safe and controlled environment. This way, you build the capacity in a way that can not only theoretically know the concepts, but they are ready to go and practice in their different organizations and institutions.
Thank you, Dr. Isa. I would now like to move on back to Mr. Abdul Wahab. And my question, Abdul Wahab, is in terms of incident response, are we as a nation ready to handle incidents due to AI or incidents that are powered by AI? What should we do as a nation to be cyber ready to face threats due to AI?
So I believe the best way to defeat AI-related threats is to use AI in the incident response. So if you look at the stages of the incident response, starting from preparation to identification until the post-incident activity, you can see that for each stage, it can be enhanced using AI-driven tools. For example, at the preparation part, there are AI-driven tools that can simulate attacks, so you can prepare for a real-life scenario. And on the identification phase, or the identification of an attack, there are AI-driven tools that trains on the normal behavior of the users in order to detect any anomaly behavior. So all those stages can be enhanced effectively with AI-driven tools, and they are available. Yeah.
Thank you, Abdul Wahab. Moving on, Dr. Logan, I would like to ask, what are some of the potential unintended consequences of AI? How can we anticipate such issues and address these issues before they become major problems for typical organizations?
I think we've discussed a lot of the negative consequences or potential negative consequences, and maybe I'll just give a few more examples. And the reason why I want to give a few more examples is that in my working through the rollout of AI throughout society is that every sector could have potential negative consequences. I think each ministry can strategize and see what are those risks and threats for our industry. So I'll give you an example. Just this week in Education City, we have a self-driving bus. And on the roads of the state of Qatar, we have some vehicles that have self-driving mode. As we heard, the training models for many of these systems were not trained based on a richness of data reflective of the state of Qatar, or Khalij more generally. So when these self-driving cars, or when these semi-autonomous systems are on the road, and they are using their sensors to detect where are the humans that I should not hit, are they accurately reflective and knowledgeable as a system of how we dress? That's a question. And I don't think they are appropriately trained to be able to make the distinction. For example, if you imagine walking or driving down the road and seeing someone dressed in abaya or in thawbin ghutar from the back, are the models recognizing these as humans equally as accurately as someone dressed in a suit? I'm going to suggest not, but we should definitely check, because these will have implications. Road safety of all of our population. This goes back to regulation of our vehicles. And I'm just giving you this transportation example. I've given you others example, financial sector, education sector. But what I want to say is that AI poses risks and threats throughout society. This isn't only a cybersecurity, cyber warfare threat. We need to consider the potential implications or unintended consequences throughout every ministry and every sector. I probably will leave it with this one example, and we can come back to others afterwards.
Thank you, Dr. Rogan. Dr. Isa, my question to you is, so again, we have heard about a lot of risks today in this session. How do we balance those risks, and how do we balance the potential benefits that AI can still give back to society? What are the potential benefits of AI vis-a-vis the risks that it poses to the society? As well as, like, what are some of the inspiring open grant challenges that probably you as a research and academic institutions are working on that you would like to share with the audience today?
Yeah, thanks. That's an important question. I think, like this lady from the UN mentioned, I mean, AI is a tool. I mean, it's the way that you use it what makes it either risk or an opportunity. And of course, there is a big opportunity that we can see in adopting in AI. And the thing that we need to be aware of is that we should not be blindly users of these AI models. We have to validate, we have to evaluate, we have to assess these models before we adopt them, before we utilize them. And again, we should work in parallel in developing our own models. I mean, there are lots of risks, but the answer is not to avoid using AI. The answer is how can we address these risks in a reasonable manner. For example, I mean, we know that these, especially we're talking about large language models, they have these risks of harmful content creation, but there are some solutions to this by, for example, aligning these language models now. People try to train these models. When they receive a prompt that could generate a harmful content, it does not generate, or it hinders this harmful content from being generated. So there is a new branch now of research which is called Security and Privacy of AIGC, which is AI-generated content. So how can you ensure that the content that is generated by AI is not harmful and is suited to the application or to the use of this AI. So we all know, I mean, the big risk of deepfake, for example. I mean, where we have even very recent examples. I'm pretty sure everybody have heard about these Taylor Swift photos or Biden's voice election for his voter in Hampshire, I know which state it was that. And even in the finance sector, and there was a loss of $25 million for which a deep fake setting using the generative AI that convinced someone convinced this employee to spend these $25 million. So these are contents being generated by AI. So there should be some research by how can we ensure first the authenticity and the traceability of these things. How can we prevent these language models from generating such harmful content in the first place? And this requires a big research. It's not after the math. Maybe sometimes we need to make sure that while developing these models, we should take into consideration the security and privacy issues while building the model. But that is only one aspect, and we cannot cover all the risks that go in there. So therefore, there is another domain, which is after generating this content, how can we alleviate or mitigate the risks from this generated content? Fake news, deep fake, all of these things is just simple examples of these contents that are generated by these models.
Thank you so much, Dr. Isa, for those insights. My sincere apologies. Because of the time restrictions, we might not be able to take questions from the audience at this point of time. But let me take the liberty on behalf of my guest. I would like to assure you that the gentleman would be available in the breaks, and you could ask your questions post the session, and I'm sure they would be happy to oblige. As we wrap up this session today, I would like to ask one last question, right? If I could ask each of you to briefly summarize your thoughts, and what is that one key takeaway, what is that one key action item that you would like the audience to go home with, to kind of like, when they go back to think about it and before they embark on their AI journey?
So
this is for all of you.
Yes, so everyone talked about the risks of AI, but we didn't talk much about the mitigations and the characteristics of a trustworthy AI system. And it was mentioned by Dr. Isa, and it was also mentioned in the previous session by Mr. Lucas, which are the 7 characteristics which all AI systems must follow. And those characteristics are you can't neglect any of them. You have to follow all of them, but there is a trade-off. So first one is AI system need to be safe. It should not harm a human being. It should be privacy enhanced. It have to be complying with the regulations relating to privacy and respecting the privacy of people. It need to be explainable. AI systems outputs need to be understood by a human. It needs to be, on the base of all of that, valid and reliable. It needs to do what it is requested to do and without failure. And it needs to be also bias managed, as Dr. Logan said. And it needs to be accountable and transparent. So it needs to be, its decisions need to be audited. For example, if you are using AI system in financial sector for fraud detection, for example, every decision need to be logged and need to be audited for later. Yes.
My takeaway message is that each industry, each sector can look across what are the potential risks, do some brainstorming, and I can say there are many people at Jamiat Hamad bin Khalifa, QCRI, we're very willing to engage, to think about what are the potential risks and threats to your sector, to your industry, and be proactive instead of reactive. And as we be proactive, to embrace the values that we would like to see embedded within these systems and ensure that they're put front and center, as opposed to having to react to the risks that come afterwards.
Yeah, my takeaway message is that AI, or as what people show it, is not magic. I mean, it's simply what is, goes in, goes out. It just reflects what we have. So we should not be afraid of AI or generative AI. We should adopt it, but we should be wise. And again, I emphasize, if it's the last thing to do, let's do it and build it ourselves, not only using it. So this is my last message.
Thank you, everybody, for those insightful messages. I would like to thank all the guests on the panel today for those interesting and informative conversations that they had and the insights that they shared with the audience. I'm sure the audience benefited a lot with these thoughts and insights. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to thank our panelists today. Thank you.
السادة الحضور، قد تقدم تقنيات الذكاء الاصطناعي حلولاً فعالة لقضايا الأمن السيبراني وتعزيز الأمان السيبراني. وللحديث بإسهاب حول كيفية مساهمة الذكاء الاصطناعي في حل تحديات الأمن السيبراني، نستضيف الآن جلسة نقاشية حول هذا الموضوع، ويدير الجلسة الدكتور أيمن أربد، أستاذ مشارك ورئيس قسم في جامعة حمد بن خليفة، وبمشاركة كل من الدكتور سانجي تشاولا، الدكتور ياسين شلال، السيد محمد المناعي. يرجى من المشاركين التفضل للمنصة.
So I'd like to thank you all for being here, and thank you for, I know the lunch and coffee is outside and you're still here, so thank you so much for giving the time. So today our topic, as you know, is about how to use AI for cybersecurity. And as Mr. Mtawwa said in his speech, one of the most important ways for us to counter the issues that we have in our cyberspace, all the challenges and attacks, is to build these threat intelligence and intrusion detection systems using AI. So I'd like to thank my panelist, Mr. Mohammed Al-Mannai, Director of the National Cyber Program Delivery Department, Dr. Yasin Shallal, Professor at UDST, and Dr. Sanjay Chawla, Chief Scientist at QCRI. So just to get started with the general questions to all of you, Qatar as a country now have managed to organize big events, mega events like the World Cup, the Asian Cup, and many to come. And we are also have managed to develop very healthy, rich sector, oil and gas, financial sector, and many of the critical sector that are successful and becoming more international as we go. And this makes us a little bit vulnerable. People want to inflict more damage by attacking these successful events or successful industries. So I want to pick your brains on what do you feel are the potential for the use of AI to protect these gains that we have in cybersecurity? And maybe also the second part, if you have some look on what are the implications. So assuming we will use AI for cybersecurity, what are the implications on each of our sector as a regulator, as a university, or as a national R&D center? So go ahead, Mr. Mohammed.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Doctor. I'd like to answer the first part of the question as Qatar is currently frequently hosting mega events. Let's take the World Cup for an example. When we were preparing for the cybersecurity operations, in terms of acting proactively or reactively, let's take, for example, the SOC. We would require a lot of cybersecurity analysts, cybersecurity experts, and not only as a regulator, but also the other organizations in the country, they require that number of people. So there will be a high demand on the required people to operate the cybersecurity. Some organizations would turn their operations to 24/7. So there will be a demand on the people, and if everybody in the market is requiring this big number of people, there will be we could be facing an issue that would lead to failure of demand. So Implementing AI and the security operations and the cybersecurity is gonna give us some sort of automation. I would not answer these questions as if we were saying that AI is gonna be replacing level 1 analysts or level 2 analysts. No, I would say that we will be speeding up the operations. We will be reducing our response time, and we will have some sort of accuracy if we speak about the intrusion detection, if we speak about the incident response, and most importantly, the cyber threat intelligence, as AI can allow us to predict threats in the Qatari landscape much more accurately and much more faster due to the AI capability of analyzing large amounts or large volumes of data. Now, the second part of the question is about the implications. The implications are not necessarily negative. I would say there are positive implications, there are negative implications. The positive ones, as I just mentioned, it's about speeding up the process, it's about reducing the response time, as well as having accuracy. So empowering the current cybersecurity experts and using AI as a tool is going to be very beneficial for the industry, especially if I put it in the context of hosting mega events where large cybersecurity or large network traffic is ongoing. The negative part is, as it was mentioned in the previous panel discussions, the malicious use of AI by adversaries is currently in the rise, and that's very negative and harmful. And there could be some collaborations with the academics to have some sort of model or strategy where the malicious usage of AI can be prevented.
Thank you so much for the insightful answer. So, Dr. Yassin?
Yes, thank you for this question. So indeed, the usage of AI in cybersecurity will allow security operation centers to strengthen their managed detection and response capabilities. Because, as you know, today's attacks generate a lot of data, and it is beyond the capabilities of a human being to analyze in real time all those data. With AI, we will be able to increase the time of analysis of huge amounts of data, and also to detect even zero-day attacks, something that is hardly doable with legacy signature-based detection systems, because AI can rely on behavior analysis. And this will bring a huge accuracy in detecting the attacks, as I said, even zero-day attacks, and improve overall the MDR, or managed detection and response capabilities of security operation centers. For the second part of the question, I agree with my colleague. AI will necessitate and foster the collaboration inside Qatar, and also require homegrown industries relating to cybersecurity. Why? Because, as you know, this is an established fact. Accuracy, precision of AI model is heavily related to the quality of the data sets that are used to train the models. When it comes to cybersecurity, this means that we have to feed our models with logs, with sensitive data related to the attacks that are happening even in sensitive institutions, in ministries, in administrations, public sector, private sector. So we cannot simply outsource those sensitive data elsewhere, because we are giving, like, for potential enemies, our weaknesses. So it is necessary to foster this homegrown cybersecurity industries and collaboration. And for instance, in HBQ, there is the research lab in cybersecurity with partnership with NCSA that allow this analysis of logs from different ministries and different sensitive institutions to avoid subcontracting relating to training model on sensitive data relating to the state of Qatar. Okay, so this is one of the implications.
Thank you so much, Professor Yassin.
So yeah, so I think answering your question about, we host a lot of these big events, I think the first thing to realize is, independent of AI, the reasons we have successful cyber attacks is because of the asymmetry of the attacks. The adversary has much more resources, can hire cheap botnets to sort of sustain an attack, to mount an attack. And also the fact that the nature of this cybersecurity is evolving. So it's asymmetric and evolving, right? So how can we bring in AI to help defend against this kind of an adversary? So now I think in the morning, Dr. I think Dana Yusuf mentioned about AI Sora, right? The OpenAI Sora, right? So if you think about it, what is it doing? You're given text information, and it's able to generate video, right? So question is, can we do the same thing with data that is like network data? So can we, for example, take behavioral data and generate certain types of network data? And that will help us characterize our local data sets. So for example, if Qatar has a certain profile, right, we can create a model very unique to Qatar, right? And then we can use it to differentiate between data that is normal traffic data and perhaps data that, say, coming from a DDoS attack, right? So people have tried this, this anomaly detection has been around for a long time. But I think with new AI techniques, we have the power to, potentially the power to do something which was earlier not possible. Using the same ideas, similar ideas, but on the rich source of data that we have that exists. And as was mentioned, we have to have homegrown models to do that. We can't ship our data overseas. This log data can't be shipped overseas. So we need to have the capacity to train people to not only use these models, but to also design new models. And surprisingly, AI models are not very hard to build, right? For example, when OpenAI came up with ChatGPT, within, now they're open source models, right? They're much cheaper, they are much smaller, they are, in some sense, in some applications, they are, if you look at the benchmarks, they are equally powerful, equally good, right? So it's actually the data, and of course we need the compute, but we need, we don't need huge amounts of compute. We need reasonable amounts of compute, and we need the talent, but it is not rocket science. It is something that we can train in our universities, in our colleges, and we can sort of, take on this asymmetric adversary, I think. So.
Thank you so much. So I really would like to just capture the themes. We talked about the benefits of using AI in cybersecurity, time, accuracy, automation, and allowing it to be much more streamlined process. We also talked about the need for data sets, local data sets that represent Qatar and the attacks that we have here. We also talked about the need, if we are to do that, to have the right human resources that will be able to work in the different entities, but also would be able to start and consider building our new models that will be able to address these attacks. So that's really a big dream for us, all of us, whether on the operator side, legislator, and in the company. But I want to come back to NCSA, and what do you think would be the right formula or the right way to sort of help build this ecosystem, to build collaboration between the regulator, the academia, and maybe enhance collaboration even between academia and the operators? What do you think the role of the NCSA, and what do you have in mind to build that ecosystem?
So we have seen a product today, the guideline, which was developed in collaboration with the academia. However, we shouldn't be stopping at publishing guidelines, working on regulations, but we need to develop and collaborate with academics to develop our localized AI algorithms that are advanced enough to be used for our cybersecurity operations, and to at least be biased, but the good bias, as it was mentioned in the panel discussion earlier, the previous panel discussion. So I support the argument that was made by Dr. Khalil about developing localized algorithms for AI.
So thank you so much. And we depend on NCSA as the main champion, the regulator, to support the ecosystem. So thank you so much. So I would like to maybe turn it to Professor Yassin and now ask you, the academia is now working in this area. There is a big role for the academia, whether it's the teaching part, developing and building capacity at scale at the graduate and the undergraduate level, and also in the research side, doing basic academic research to bootstrap. So I would like to ask you the question in two sides now. From capacity building, what do you think in Qatar needs to happen? And from the research side, what are the type of research that you see happening in Qatar now in this area?
Yeah, let's start with the second part relating to research and innovation. You know, cybersecurity is a broad field, and it's better to approach it through a layered approach. So we can see cybersecurity and using AI in cybersecurity through three layers: the information layer, securing the information, the data layer, and the infrastructure layer. At the information layer, and I will cite only like a sample of research efforts that are relevant to Qatar. At the information layer, as you know, Qatar is one of the major players in the arena of media production and eliminating opinions worldwide with news. So, and unfortunately, with the democratization of AI, there are a lot of fake news and propaganda. So the question is how to leverage AI to secure the information itself. And here, actually, there are hot research topics relating to combating fake news and detecting fake news, fake accounts in social media. And actually, the Gen AI helped recently to sophisticate the generation of fake news, because you can even build on valid news some narrative, some frames that deviate the information from its initial and original intent. And in this area, there are a lot of research works dealing with how to use generative AI to remove those frames and narrative fake news and disinformation. This is one sample of topics that are relevant to Qatar. At the data layer, as you know, recently the Ministry of Transport and Communications published the National Security Information Security Compliance Framework. This is actually a huge program to provide certification for all e-service providers, whether public or private sector, to show their compliance with the national cybersecurity strategy in Qatar. So here also measuring the gap between Qatar standards and norms and also manuals with the actual processes, workflows, policies, and operations measures is a huge work. And here, AI also can play a key role in measuring this gap. We can feed AI with the norms on one side and the standards. On the other side, the processes, workflows, operation measures, and AI can help in measuring the gaps and also to show that compliance. So this is also another example of research topic at the data level. In the infrastructure level, we have a huge problem with encrypted data when it comes to the detection of cybersecurity attacks, because in the core network, most of the data is encrypted, and this is why most of the attacks happen at the end and the edge network, and this is a huge problem. So it would be beneficial if we could stop the attacks in the core network, but the data is encrypted. So one of the hot research topics also is to leverage AI that is based on behavior analysis to work on encrypted data and encrypted attacks. We have also those multi-morphic malware or polymorphic malware also, where the malware code is encrypted with different keys. So it will be difficult to detect those malware using signature-based because it's anyway encrypted. So using behavior analysis, using AI will help stopping and detecting those malware at the right time. So this is like a sample of research topics that are relevant to the context of Qatar. When it comes to capacity building from the education perspective, for instance, at UDST we have 2 bachelor programs. We have 5 bachelor programs, but specifically we have a program in AI and data science and another program in data and cybersecurity. And we are also working on a master program that tackles specifically the issue of AI in cybersecurity, and we hope this will contribute to capacity building of the country.
Okay. Thank you so much. So the academic community is really rich here in Qatar. Qatar University, they have the master and PhD in computing. HBKU, we have data science, cybersecurity, and the undergrad computer. And UDST also is bringing this very innovative master program where they mix between data science and cybersecurity and the undergraduate program. And it's growing. We have many of the private universities also. Lusail and all of them, they are offering these degrees. So as an academic community, considering myself part of it, we are gearing up to this challenge to build the right capacity. And really our hope in the future is to build much stronger collaboration with you guys, the industry, to be able to build together these data sets, to work on research together, and to get funding eventually maybe from the industry to be able to fund these activities. And this is a good segue for probably the biggest R&D center in Qatar in cybersecurity and AI. And QCRI recently issued their governance, their thinking about governance of AI. So I think they are well positioned to discuss this. But I want to ask you, being always worried about governance and regulation, do you feel that there is a threat that these regulations might choke us too early? Like we are still thinking about development and maybe also about governance and regulation. What do you feel about that, Professor Sanjay?
So, at the highest level, there are there's a spectrum. On one side of the spectrum is called risk-based, right? You basically make a product, you put it out in the market, like they did with ChatGPT, and you get feedback, you discover the flaws and you fix them. Hopefully, you can fix them. There won't be any major side effect. The other side of the spectrum is rights-based. You start from rights of individuals and say, okay, whatever you produce, it should not violate these rights. Typically, the European Union is more considered rights-based. So where should Qatar be in that spectrum? since Qatar wants to innovate and it's a nascent sort of technological area, I think we have to be, I'm biased towards being more risk-based, right? So we need to take some risks initially, right? We cannot be sort of handcuffed with too many regulations. But at the same time, we have to be aware. For example, a few weeks ago, the US banned this robocalls, right? The deep fakes robocall, the people, you can voice clone and you can, call people. So I think similarly in deep fakes, we need to see, is it truly a big risk here? If it is, then we need to act, right? And of course, if we try to, ban deep fakes, then what are the implications of that? What does it mean? What does it really mean? What does it mean about the development of models here, about systems here? So, we just have to be aware about the technology, but also aware that if you want to innovate, certain level of risk-taking is necessary. So.
Thank you so much. And maybe last but not least, I would like to maybe end with a little bit of what's your final remarks, vision for this area? I mean, it's a very hot area of research for development. AI is picking up. Locally also we have, I would say, enough capacity and understanding. So what are your final remarks on the use of AI for cybersecurity? What do you want our technical audience here and our guests to have as they go?
So the use of AI-driven cybersecurity solutions is gonna accelerate the operations. It's gonna be powerful and very beneficial for the cybersecurity experts or cybersecurity teams within each organization. And we encourage that, and we are also internally at NCSA discovering the options of using AI in our daily operations, as we have created a team internally to discover and explore the possible options of adopting this technology into our cyber operations. And in addition to that, the risk of adopting algorithms that were developed by Western companies or whatever is not gonna serve us properly, especially because they were biased negatively in our point of view.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. Go ahead.
Yes, as a takeaway, I would emphasize on 2 points. The first one is to introduce cyber hygiene at the early stage possible. I mean, at primary school, at secondary school. We have, now that our kids know how to use ChatGPT as a tool to learn, they should also be aware of the risks behind AI and to inculcate cyber hygiene at this stage. The second point is the importance to introduce also cybersecurity and AI tools at the software development stage at university level, and educate our future engineers to develop resilient and secure software with the help of AI. Okay,
thank you so much, Professor Yassine. Professor Sanjay?
I have a sort of general comment about AI in this. So obviously, what we really want, AI is a tool, right? And there is a Qatar national vision that Qatar wants to transition to a knowledge economy, right? So we need the economy to be powered, where there's knowledge workers, there's innovation, there's work that's done outside, say, the mining. And if we just blindly adopt AI, and big companies start adopting AI, usually big companies cannot innovate too much. They're very good in efficiency, but they cannot innovate. So they will use AI for cost cutting. And that would be a bad thing for Qatar because you don't want cost cutting too much. You want the economy to grow, right? So you really want to empower small and medium enterprises to use AI because that's where the innovation will take place, right? That's where creative ideas will come out. That's where new niche products will emerge, maybe in media, in sports, in tourism. So that's what the the leadership and the people who are who can make decisions. They need to make sure that that the AI is used or flows into people, or the people have access where they can be creative, innovative, rather than just as a cost-cutting tool. So,
thank you so much. I would really like to thank all of you. This is really the right type of discussion. We have people from the regulator, from academia, capacity building, R&D, research and development, and we really want these type of conversations to continue. We want to be able to work together in order to develop our own models, our own understanding, so we can, first of all, understand the new technology that comes to us from the big international players, but also eventually to build our own models that can be used in the future. I'd like to end by thanking Mr. Muhammad, Professor Yassine, Professor Sanjay, and you all for being here. Thank you.
نشكر المشاركين في هذه الجلسة الهامة على تطرقهم لإسهامات الذكاء الاصطناعي في حل قضايا الأمن السيبراني. الحضور الكريم، لقد كان الهدف من مؤتمرنا اليوم إلقاء الضوء على أهمية الاستخدام الآمن للذكاء الاصطناعي والإضافات التي تقدمها هذه التقنية في المجالات المختلفة، وعلى رأسها الأمن السيبراني، بالإضافة إلى إطلاق المبادئ التوجيهية للاستخدام والتطبيق الآمن للذكاء الاصطناعي، والتي تهدف الوكالة الوطنية للأمن السيبراني من خلالها إلى توضيح المخاطر المرتبطة بأنظمة الأمن السيبراني وكيفية التخفيف منها من أجل استخدام فعال وآمن. وفي الختام نشكر لكم حضوركم اليوم، وعلى أمل اللقاء بكم في فعاليات قادمة، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.